Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. I want to start out by giving infinite praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to my apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well, and peace and citations to the elect men pushing out this word in truth and sincerity. This is the brother Yakanan, and the topic I wanted to touch on today, and Lord's will, this video is entitled, Find Your Balance, And, just wanted to touch on this subject because, I was, meditating upon a few things, and, one of those things was, balance, and being able to live, a temperate and balanced life, being able to, be able to fit things within your life that more so, that tailors towards the truth as opposed to, tailoring, the truth to your life, basically having the truth be your foundation and your standpoint when you from every perspective from what you're doing, and one of the biggest things about life is that it changes. It could be, hopefully it's for the better, but sometimes it could be for the worse for a temporary circumstance, especially if you believe in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and one of the first things that you should be thinking of when you're presented with something that may alter how you live your life is how to find a good balance to be able to push the word and do what's pleasing to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and we all have, and every brother has their different balance, because every brother has a different type of life, and every brother has a different type of living, type of way of living that life, that goes out, of course, that's, not particularly, about, not particularly, going off, but, things things that they're responsible and have to account for, besides the truth. We all have our, responsibilities, our secular responsibilities. And one of the things that we need to do, in order to push the word rightly, is finding a balance between those things, so you're able to, keep the spirit, And I wanted to get a few scriptures that go into that. Now, this is Proverbs chapter 25, verse 16. Hast thou found honey? Eat so much as is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomited. Right? So, this goes into more so, of the good aspect. If you find something that's good unto you, something that you enjoy, something that you like doing, and the Lord has given you opportunity to be able to indulge in that. Eat what is sufficient for you. Indulge in that just the right amount, if that you may be filled wherewith, lest you be filled therewith and vomited, meaning you consume too much and end up taking more than what you can chew. Some of these things are things that that it's not as easy to come back from. Too much of a good thing is bad. And the Lord stresses out through the scriptures about finding your balance. Because even on the right hand side, too much study is a weariness. It says that too much study is a weariness of the flesh. So too much of anything is not a good thing. You have to be able to, find your balance. And the reason why I brought out this scripture is because these are the things that our flesh is more so, that your flesh is more likely to be subject to. Having something good presented in front of you and overindulging in it, right? The scriptures also talk about a superfluity of naughtiness, meaning excess, where there's excess and you indulge in too much of that excess. You're supposed to indulge just the right amount, in order to be in the Lord's good graces. Now, this is Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. It says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. So these are all the qualities that we're supposed to bring onto ourselves in order to gain in order to keep on getting the fruits of the spirit, right? There's no law against the fruits of the spirit. These are the things that you're supposed to, that we should hope to gain as much as we can, and one of those things is temperance, being able to control yourself, being able to control your appetites, your lust, the things that may be too much for you or too much on you. Be having control over yourselves in all things, whether it be your temper, whether it be overindulgence in any aspects or addictions, anything of that nature, anything where you can, where your emotions can take over and you can end up, for lack of better words, fucking yourself over, because there's a lot of things and there's a lot of temptations in this world in which, a lack of self-control will put you in situations and put you in places in your life in which it's hard to come back from, and it's and may affect other affect other brothers. Now this is Sirach chapter 18 verse 30. It says, go not after thy lusts, but refrain thyself from thine appetites. Basically self-control, and discipline. If thou givest thy soul to the desires that please her, she will make thee a laughing stock to thine enemies that malign thee. Take not pleasure in much good cheer, neither be tied to the expense thereof. Basically mean don't let your desires take over you. Your want for specific things take over your mind. Because really all these things really start off when it comes to the mind. It's mental before it ever manifests in the physical. Your mind and your judgment gets taken over by your desires, and when it gets taken over by your desires, your actions are going to follow suit. You end up making mistakes that you wouldn't make otherwise, doing things that you wouldn't usually do, and you have a desperation that you never had before, because when it comes to desires and lusts, it puts a spirit of addiction, and it puts a spirit of desperation on you to be able to fulfill that appetite and that lust, and that desperation is, that spirit is something that only is reserved for Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. You should only have that desperate and you should only have that desperate spirit upon spiritual things, the things that were spoken of, in the scriptures, in the scripture that I mentioned before in Galatians. The only thing that we should want to get is the fruits of the spirit. That's what we're supposed to desire and lust after. Everything else will come. Everything else will come thereafter. And you'll be temperate in how to handle these things. And that's exactly why, King Solomon's prayer was for wisdom. To be able to, because you can have all the things in the world, but if you don't know how to manage it, if you don't have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be able to maintain it, it's all going to be gone, and it's all going to be for naught, Now, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 24. It says, know ye not that they which run the race run all, but one receiveth the prize. So run that ye may obtain. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things, and the aspect of this is that you got to remember what you're fighting for. You got to remember what the prize is. You got to have, a single eye to know, hey, in order to find the balance that you need, you have to have this specific race as the foundation. Everything else is going to be secondary. If you have this as the foundation and everything comes after, everything eventually will fall in place. But if you forget to run this race, if you forsake this race, then you'll never have the right balance in life. Your balance is going to be based off of things that are going to, things that are temperate and things that are subject to be corrupted, This is the only thing that we can possibly have purpose for, because it's the only thing that comes with the whole world, with everything that that your desires can. It's the only thing that comes with more than what your desires can want, can attain. Everything that comes with this truth. The end of it is going to be all your righteous desires and more. And that's another aspect of it. Your balance, and the things that you indulge in, as long as it's not, as long as it's not wicked, as long as it's not wicked, you be able to find a right balance according to the scriptures, you know. But you just have to be able to get that spiritual gift and that spiritual fruit of temperance. That's what matters when it comes to these things, because when you're able to do that, you're temperate in all things. You know how to manage all things. It doesn't mean these other things don't exist. It means you're able to be temperate. You know when to refrain and when to indulge, and when to refrain. And you do it at the right time. Now it says, now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. Just like I stated, the race can be run by other people, but the thing is that they're running a completely different race. Their race is for things that are corruptible. Even if it's things that may seem to their benefit, all the races of this world, are corrupt. The prize is going to be corruptible, but this is for incorruptible gifts. And one of those gifts is the gifts of the Spirit. Which are the qualities that I laid out in the previous verse, and on top of that, the kingdom of heaven. In which no man, woman, or child is going to die, because the law is going to be established in our inward parts. And that for the Israelites. Now it says, I therefore run, not uncertainly, so I fight, not as one that beateth the air. So we're running with a purpose. That's essentially what that means. We're running with a purpose, and we're not. And this is not, this is not like where what's it called? It's not a test run. This is the real race. There's no such thing as practice. It's either you do it or you don't. The only preparation is being able to grow the fruits of the Spirit. Now it says, but I keep my body and bring it into subjection, and that's where the temperance and discipline comes in. Knowing how to self-control and discipline yourself to be able to actually run this race and finish. And a part of that is fine, and the biggest part of that, I'll say, is finding your balance, being able, because your life is going to be ever changing. If you've been in this truth for a while, you know that there's going to be different stages in your life where you're going to have to learn, okay, let me take a step back. This has changed in my life. That's changed in my life. And, also that has changed in my life. How can I balance these things? And what do I need to cut off in order to keep pleasing Yahweh Hashem Yahushua? And some of those things are not going to be things that we want to cut off. Some of those things are going to be things that we don't want to refrain from, but we have to enable to find a good balance, and a good balance to be able to, please Yahweh Hashem Yahushua and stay in his good graces. Otherwise, all of it is going to be taken away, regardless. You're on a timer. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be when the missiles come. But eventually, all those things can and will be taken away from you. If you don't find the right balance in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Now, it says, lest that be any means when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. And that's not what we don't want to be. An unprofitable servant, a servant that's profitable to others, but to ourselves, it's not profitable. Just saying to do certain things, but all those things are profitable to everybody except for yourself, because you lack the gift of understanding, and in this case, you lack the spiritual gift of temperance, so that was just the lesson, you know, a little lesson, short lesson, excerpt, you know, from what I was meditating upon. And Lord's will, this video was edifying. Hey,